Hey, what's up, everybody? This is your boy Kenny, and this is Unsung Season 11, and this episode is on Ice-T. Ice-T is literally one of the founding members, one of the original pioneers of gangster rap. I mean, he was before NWA, he was before Ice Cube, Dr. Dre, Tupac, Biggie. You know, Ice Cube was one of those rappers who paved the way for gangster rap. You know, where rap became more political and social conscious, where it was talking about what was really going on, you know, in a lot of in not only in South Central LA, but what was going on in a lot of inner city, you know, neighborhoods all across the country. And, you know, I have to say, like, Ice-T's music is something that I've always been gravitated towards, you know, growing up. I remember, you know, as a little boy, I actually started school in California. And I remember at that time, Ice-T was huge. I remember, you know, my dad having his albums in the house, and he would be playing, you know, 6 in the morning, you know. So I definitely grew up with Ice-T. And I even became a bigger fan of him when I actually saw him in New Jack City playing the cop. You know, so I've always been a huge fan of Ice-T, not just for him as an artist, but also him as a thinker and a philosopher. And that's something I'm definitely going to get into. But I like the whole concept, you know, of owning yourself and taking your power and being your own man, and that's something that Ice-T has always represented. He was actually from Summit, New Jersey. His government is actually Tracy Merrow. He actually experienced some hardship at an early age. By the time he was 12, he had lost both of his parents. His mom died when he was in the 3rd grade, and he even says in this episode that he was actually in her lap when she had a heart attack, and she pretty much, you know, succumbed to that heart attack. And by the time he was in the 7th grade, his father had passed away from natural causes. So here it is, you have this young 12-year-old kid who no longer has any parents, and he's actually uprooted from New Jersey to live in South Central LA with an aunt that he didn't even know. And, you know, being in that situation, and he even talked about that in his Behind the Music, that him and his aunt, it really wasn't a good situation for him. But he made do, and then once he was able to get out of that situation, he moved on. But in all actuality, he was on his own by the age of 12. You know, by the age of 12, he was on his own, and he had to make his own way. And that's exactly what he did. And pretty much he said that, you know, around this time in South Central LA, especially by the time he got into high school, he went to Crenshaw High. He was saying that gangs were literally taking over the city. I mean, this was, you know, the days of, you know, Tukey Williams, you know, where pretty much gang affiliation was very big. They also talk about, like, when he was in high school, he actually joined this dance group called the Lockers, you know, pop locking, you know, break dancing. So he was definitely a part of that, and I definitely, you know that to be true, because I remember, you know, seeing him in the movies Breakin' and Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo. You know, he pretty much played like the DJ and the rapper in the movie, and it's definitely a classic to this day. Every time I kind of chuckle when I like look back at Breakin', and I was like, oh my God, look how young he was back then. But he was just as gritty and was just as, you know, potent then as he is now. But then he also in this episode talks about his love for Iceberg Slim. I, for one, have read Iceberg Slim, and I am a big fan of Iceberg Slim as well. And, you know, I look at Iceberg Slim not from the standpoint of just pimping. I really look at him as being like a mastermind of owning yourself, being a mastermind of knowing how to map out and control your own destiny. And that's exactly what Iceberg Slim represent. But what Ice-T used to do, I mean, Ice-T would actually rap some of the content from Iceberg Slim, and people was like, yo, Ice, won't you spit some more of that good shit from from Iceberg Slim? And that what struck him, like, that's where his name came from, Ice-T. You know, Ice, Iceberg Slim, T, Tracy, Ice Tracy. So I was like, genius, pure genius. And he even talks about that he actually did meet Iceberg Slim, and he lets him know that, look, you're like a hero, you're a hero of mine, and, you know, I got my name from you. And he says, you know, better you than anybody else, brother. So they actually bonded, and Iceberg Slim literally, you know, gave Ice-T his blessing, you know, before he had passed. But I even watched this documentary on Iceberg Slim. I mean, he was actually a very profound person. I mean, yeah, you know, the life of Iceberg Slim was gritty, it was dark, it was brutal, it was dangerous, but, you know, there was some great gems that came out of that. And, you know, Iceberg Slim has literally built, you know, who he is off of Iceberg Slim's, you know, character and intelligence. So I thought that was very remarkable. I mean, he was like writing rhymes before people even knew what gangster rap was. You know, but then he also talks about, you know, that he lived a life of crime. You know, he was, you know, stealing stereos, selling weed. He ended up having his daughter Letitia when he was in high school. Pretty much a teenage love affair. But he really took, you know, being a father seriously, so he decided to straighten his life out. He joined the military, you know, for 4 years, and while he was in the military, he was introduced to Grandmaster Flash, so he was kind of introduced to the hip-hop movement that was going on in New York. So he pretty much was, you know, still getting that message, you know, that, yeah, this is going on the East Coast, we need to bring this to the West Coast as well. So pretty much after he got out of the military, he pretty much had this schedule where he was rapping at night, but in the daytime he was robbing banks and also doing jewelry heists. And, you know, they was getting really big money, and they pretty much said that they did it with no guns. So, but they kind of saw themselves as like, you know, Robin Hood, you know, give to the rich, you know, take from the rich and give to the needy. He also mentions that in this episode that you know, he was actually in a car accident where at first people were saying that he was never going to walk again, but due to the fact that he was a part of the military, he was sent to a veterans hospital, and he was saying that while he was in that hospital, he had a life-changing, you know, situation, because the whole time he was in that hospital, only one person showed up. And it started to dawn on him that the reason why nobody came is because I'm not a good person. You know, I've done nothing but do bad shit, and I've only thought about myself. You know, I don't want to die with nobody coming to my funeral. I don't want to die with not having good people around me. So within that situation, you know, something struck and changed in him, and he decided to, after he got out of the hospital, he committed himself to music full time. And he ended up getting, you know, a job at this club called The Radio, where, you know, he was rapping and DJing. And it was actually at this club where a producer came in, you know, looking for people to be a part of the movie Breaking. And pretty much he was saying that, I mean, pretty much, you know, Ice-T, I mean, I think it's, Change the Glove Taylor. If I'm wrong, correct me in the comments. He was a DJ and producer, you know, who actually worked at the radio at the time, and he was talking about how Ice-T was pretty much was like very adamant, like, look, I can do it all. I can rap, I can act, I can do whatever. You know, whatever you need me to do, I'll do it. And we see that he ended up getting a very crucial, you know, role in Breaking, you know, being kind of like the soundtrack of, you know, of the pop rock movement, you know, and We see that, like, when they would be like at Electro Rock and they'll be battling with each other, Ice-T was the DJ and was the one who was on the mic spitting while they were all dancing off against each other. So definitely, breaking is definitely a part of one of my favorites of all time. And seeing Ice-T in his early form and seeing where he's come now, he's definitely come a long way. And we definitely saw early on that he definitely had that street edge, and he definitely had, that power, So we saw that early on in breaking, and then it just propelled from there. And pretty much after, because I think both of the breaking movies I think were done in '84. In '86 is when 6 in the Morning came out, and I remember listening to 6 in the Morning in the house. I remember that being played a lot, where he's pretty much this is one of the golden gems of gangster rap, where he's talking about, 6 in the morning is when, the feds are going to come in and they're going to, ransack your shit, and then they're going to take you off to jail, and if they find something, they're going to take you down. I mean, this is what was going on then. I mean, this is, you have to think, this is the 80s. This is the height of the crack epidemic, and, you had all of these squads, that were going in, busting up crack houses, taking people down. It was a crazy time. And Ice-T was one of the first reporters of this type of, action that was really going on, in the streets of Los Angeles. Also, what ended up happening, he ends up, signing with Sire Records, and Seymour Stein, who was pretty much the head of Warner Brothers at the time, had told him that, that Ice-T was like Bob Dylan, that he was a true artist, that he was, innovative, he was authentic, and he gave him a platform where he can actually showcase his authenticity. So they pretty much, let him do his own albums, and he was able to express himself. And plus, what he was bringing to the table was something new that had never been heard before. So pretty much his I think it was his first album, Ron Pays, which came out in '87. It went gold. And then it was after the success of Ron Pays that he was actually tapped to do the song, for the movie Colors. And he says that, look, he says Ron Pays, 6 in the Morning actually introduced me to the hip hop community, but Colors was my national breakthrough. And we definitely seen that because, we've seen the movie Colors, and, Ice-T's song is the soundtrack of that film. Then he talks about his album Power, which is actually probably one of his best-selling albums to date. Where, one of the songs, I'm Your Pusher, I definitely remember that. Where, he's talking in the mindset of a drug dealer, but he's not talking about selling drugs, he's talking about selling music, which I think was genius. And it's a hip-hop classic, straight up. And then they also talk about, some of this, they even talk about High Rollers, which is another top 20 hit. And also on the cover of the album Power, there's this really beautiful woman, and that woman is actually Darlene Ortiz, who was, Ice-T's, she was pretty much one of his lifelong partners. They were together for years. And she had their son, Ice Tracy Merrow. And, Little Ice has grown up, big time. I mean, he definitely looks a lot like his father, definitely has his dad's swag, and it's cool to see, because I remember, like, when they did Behind the Music years ago, Ice was a little boy at the time, and now he's a grown man, so it's great to see how well he's progressed. And he was even talking about how he used to get somewhat hazed at school because his mom was on the cover and people would say stuff, and he said that it used to bother him, but after a while, he developed a sense to deal with it. But then he actually, said something great about, Darlene Ortiz, that she was really down for him and she was very supportive. And he said that, one down bitch beats out 10 funky hoes. And I was like, wow, what a damn good ratio. But, he even to this day, he has utmost respect for her, even though they're not together anymore, because, he's married to Coco. But he still, they still have a great rapport with each other. Then, they actually talk about the album, Freedom of Speech, Just Watch What You Say, and the song Lethal Weapon, where pretty much she's saying that the real lethal weapon is not the gun. The lethal weapon is your mind, your intelligence. Knowledge is power. The Freedom of Speech, Just Watch What You Say actually went gold. So he had like gold albums, was successful out the gate, and he just continued to build and build and build from that point on. And then also, I think also on that album was the song You Played Yourself, where he shows 3 different scenarios that he says that if you're gonna have a demise, do not let that demise be because of your own doing. There's sometimes life events that happen that throw you off your game. But it's even worse when you self-sabotage yourself. And he started showing 3 different, and like in the video, it was 3 different scenarios. The guy who's using his money to get women, he's trying to buy love. Then you got this other character who's a rap star, but then disrespects his fans and is not loyal to his fan base. And then you got one who's end up, being a dope fiend and end up being locked up. So the whole idea is that you played yourself. You can't blame anybody for your downfall. You caused your downfall, so you are to blame. And then, as again, like he opened the door for a lot of West Coast rappers. I mean, I would say we wouldn't have had, NWA. We never would have had Dr. Dre, Eazy-E, Ice Cube. We would never have this movement of West Coast rap if it wasn't for Ice-T leading the pack. And, pretty much the media, came up with the term gangster rap, in connection to NWA. So what Ice Cube did, on his album OG, he pretty much said that, look, if they are gangster rap, then that means I'm the original gangster because I paved the way for all of them to be here. So the song, so pretty much, well, actually, it was the, correct me. Well, I'm going to correct myself, actually. The album was called Original Gangster, but the song was called OG, and he's pretty much in that song saying that, look, I brought it to the table, and look now where it's going. And it was also around this time that he developed a rock band, Body Count. He was actually doing a concert at Lollapalooza, and they also had Perry Farrell, who's a rock artist who definitely is a big fan of Ice-T, and he pretty much said that, as far as their set, he wanted to do a set with him just doing his stuff, but then he wanted to introduce his rock band, Body Count. And they played, on the same stages as Slayer, Metallica, Guns N' Roses. So Body Count is a legit force as well, and he still rocks with this band to this day. And this was a band that he created with some of his, classmates and friends, when he was a student at Crenshaw High School. And one of the most infamous tracks that came off of that was Cop Killer. As far as and it came off of their Body Count album. The song Cop Killer took on a life of its own because, pretty much, Ice-T at that moment was like, look, what if someone who has went crazy off of police brutality, that they went on a rampage? and just started annihilating cops. Man, this was the type of song that should have woken up America and should have kind of like given America that thought mentality that, look, this is what's going on in the inner cities. This is what's going on in black communities, even right now as we speak. And that, how long do you think people are going to take getting beaten down, being abused, and being brutalized to the point eventually they're going to snap? I mean, it was just an honest statement, but it took on a life on its own, because I think 1 month after it was released is where we had, the beating of Rodney King, and the police were actually, they were, they were not charged for that brutal beating. And this would lead to the LA riots, and because of all of that, this put Ice Cube on center stage, and then you had the likes of George Bush and, Dan Quayle and Charlton Heston that were like bashing him publicly, talking about they are making money, which is suggesting it's okay to kill cops. And it was just insane. Like, when the president says your name, the shit has hit the fan. And and actually Ice Cube mentioned this, that look, yeah, it caused a lot of backlash, but then it also caused, some backlash for Ice-T as well, because he was being threatened by the LAPD, his life was at stake for him just expressing freedom of speech, for him just telling his truth. He literally created this. It literally just became this bizarre situation that just went out of control, where they were boycotting Time Warner. They were telling them that, we're going to no longer support Ice-T's albums. And, it just created like a complete movement, to bash Ice-T as well as to bash Time Warner. I mean, literally, Ice-T became public enemy number 1, which is why he's unsung, because from that point, his music career hasn't been the same from that point. But he's still doing music, and he still is with Body Count. And I mean, then like they even have a song called No Life Matters, and that shit is real, because in that song he pretty much says that, look, it don't matter whether you black, whether you brown, or whatever it is you may be. If you think you're going to go against this machine, they will lay your ass down. So he's pretty much saying that, look, when you a dark-skinned kid, no life, according to them, no life matters. It's not even, it goes beyond just being black, because the fact about it is that they have the mentality that because you're black and because you're poor, you don't matter anyway, so therefore we can just abuse you and ain't shit you can do about it. So he's still saying that, look, we need to come together, and we definitely need to change the course of what's actually going on, that's still currently going on right now as far as police brutality. And he's still giving a voice to the voiceless, even to this day. And we even know him now that, he's been Detective Ducciolo on Law and Order SVU, which is the only Law and Order I watch, and I love his character on that show. He's still been going strong, and he still has a fan base that's followed him throughout his whole career. And he's saying that, look, I'm trying to maintain my health, and I'm trying to maintain my life. And he's saying that when you have your health and you have freedom, you are winning. So the whole idea in this life is to win and live it, and live your life to the best of your ability, and live it to the fullest extent. So that's what I have on Ice-T. If I missed anything, put it down in the comments. Or if you had things in the episode that stuck out to you, please comment on my page. I would love to talk to you guys. But subscribe to my channel. Click that bell so you can get notifications every time I drop a video. Like this video, comment on this video, and share this video. And I think Unsung Hollywood is going to be coming on September 3rd. I will be doing that, so definitely check that out. So until then, everybody, take care.